We've been promising this for a while. It's mailbag time.
Can't beat a good mailbag podcast. Break things up once in a while.
Yeah, we need it. And we've been getting backed up with emails on the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan, Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro. Full disclosure, we're recording this early. I'm spending a little bit of time in Florida after the owners' meetings. If you haven't listened or watched our last podcast, a lot of really good stuff, topical stuff from the NFL owners' meetings down here in Palm Beach. So if you haven't listened to that, I would go listen to that at some point, catch up, because there was a lot of information in a pretty short podcast.
Yeah, the only day of the year, the only week of the year, the only part of the year where we talked to Nick, Howie, and Jeffrey at the same time. So really valuable stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and throw the email up here if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, the email address is eagleeye@NBCUni. That's NBCUNI.com. Feel free to send us an email. We're going to kind of clean out the mailbag today, but we'll get back into our habit of reading a few each podcast for the rest of the off season, really. Want to just get into it?
Let's
for the rest of our lives. Yeah, it seems that way. Let's get into the first one. Is from Johans. Hi, Dave. Love the pod. I'm an avid Eagles fan since I moved to Philly in summer 2016, just at the right time. I often work as a contractor.
Hi, Dave. What am I, chopped liver here?
Just it's an email from me.
Okay. All right.
Well, when you hear it, you'll get it.
I'll be over here. If you need me, I'll be reading my Jeff Lurie transcript.
Okay. I often work as a contractor at Dry Tortugas National Park and just wanted to let you know that the senior-most park ranger there is a diehard Eagles fan. Make sure to say hi when you see him. Enjoy the island and the birds. Keep up the great work. I will. I'll say hi to him. As you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance I'm actually at Dry Tortugas, so that's exciting.
There's a good chance you're actually speaking with him right now.
Very possible. Yeah.
Actually, you'd probably be about to get on the ferry back, I think.
Well, I don't know when people are listening.
No, as you're saying this.
Oh, I was saying as people are listening to it.
Yeah. No. Anyway, I can't wait to hear about that trip, though, in all seriousness. So we'll cover that next week.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I'll let everyone know how it goes. I'm excited for the drive, too, through the Keys. I've never done that.
How long is the ferry ride?
It's pretty long. Yeah, it ends up being like an all-day trip, so should be fun. I like a boat. I don't mind a boat. Whenever I'm on a boat, I'm outside. I'm in the sun. I like the wind and the waves. Give me all that.
And there's nothing on the island, right? I mean, there's nothing
like commercial.
Fort. I mean, there's nothing commercial. There's no you're not going to find a Wawa down there.
Oh no, it's a very small island. Yeah,
there's not a Macy's or something. Okay.
Oh no, there's Macy's. Yeah,
there is. I don't think there's Macy's anymore. I think
there's only one left, and it's in the middle of the fort on Dry Tortugas.
All right, here we go.
Reggie, as always, love your coverage of all things Eagles. Keep up the great work. The thing I love about football is that it's the ultimate team sport. You must have an all-around good team to win the Super Bowl, and I think we agree the Eagles were the best team this year with the best roster, 1 through 53. That being said, I believe players, even good players, are better when they have better players around them. Saquon is the perfect example. He was good with New York and great with Philly. So the Eagles players that have been signed by other teams will miss not being on a great team like the Eagles. Some may still shine. Others may be disappointing because of the teams they are on. What do you think?
No, I think that's a really good point, and I think we've seen it with some guys, and certainly Miles Sanders, and in the other direction, like Mekhi Becton, a guy like that, you get around, you got Lane over here, and you got Cam Jurgens, and you got Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson on your O-line. You're gonna look better than if you're with the Jets. So yeah, I think it's, and guys are getting contracts, and I'm not saying these guys are not going to have success with their next team, but they're getting paid for what they did with the Eagles, and I think in a lot of cases they're not going to be as good with their next team, and we just keep seeing that.
Yeah, I mean the biggest contract that got handed out to a former Eagles player was Milton Williams, getting that $104 million deal with the Patriots. I'm curious to see how he does when he's the guy. And that's not to say he can't be that guy. And I think he kind of wanted that opportunity, but he had a nice setup here in Philly, playing next to Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and next to Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham and all these really good players that He's just not going to have that in New England. Maybe he rises above that. Maybe he takes that next step in his career. But and I don't begrudge him for taking a $104 million contract. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I would turn down that kind of money just to stay where I'm comfortable. Right. Yeah. But I think it's a very good point that he brings up. And it's something, we'll look at these guys and how they do as the year goes on, and we'll see what comes of them.
Yeah. And in general, like it's an aspect of the NFL we probably don't talk about enough, especially when we talk about like guys who don't work out at all. Like they get drafted to a crappy team or a bad situation and they never overcome it. They never get a second chance. And a lot of it's out of their control. And now there's some guys who are going to go anywhere and they're special elite talent and they're going to be able to show that. But for a lot of guys, especially someone who's not like a high draft pick, if you end up in a bad spot, you might never get out of it.
Well, I always wondered, I think I asked Andy Reid this once, like if the Eagles took, say, Achilles Smith or any of those guys, Tim Couch, any of those 99 guys that even Culpepper, all those guys started from day one, and Andy kind of waited with Donovan, played Doug Peterson, unfortunately. But then he came into a place where he had Andy, and he had by 2000 playoff team around him, and he didn't have to start right away from opening day, where some of these other guys were in a position where they had to. I wonder how they all would have developed and what kind of player they would have become. I think that landing spot, your rookie year, if it's wrong, if it's a bad situation, and usually those first handful of picks, those are not good teams. So it's an interesting thing, but good question.
Yeah, I like those hypotheticals of like, if this happens, what would happen to that player or this player? And it's stuff we'll never know, but it's fun to sit around some nights and think about.
Yeah.
Next question, a couple of questions actually here from Dean. Hey guys, South Florida resident here and a regular listener of your podcast. Just two questions. Number one, with Mekhi Becton gone and the right guard spot up for grabs again, is it fair to assume this is how it's going to be going forward? Pay top dollar for 4/5 of the offensive line and have the other be a revolving door. Is Stout's reputation a selling point now to linemen who would want to find a bigger contract after reviving their career with us?
I mean, right guard has been pretty much a revolving door for a while. Brandon Brooks had a little stability there, but I think ideally you'd love to draft young, like if they draft the Lane Johnson's replacement, his eventual replacement, as a tackle, maybe that guy could play right guard until Lane retires. So I don't think it's what they want. I don't think it's ideal, but they've made it work. And if they have a chance to draft a guy that's better than anyone else they have, you start him.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the way it came together. And I don't think they were like right guard is the spot, because remember Landon Dickerson, he could have ended up playing a right guard if it worked out like that. And then they ended up playing him at left guard, and he fit well with Mailata, and they're never going to move him. But I think that's just the position they're in right now, and it makes sense. That's why they didn't pay Mekhi Becton, right? It's like you're already paying 3 of your 5 offensive linemen. We suspect that Cam Jurgens extension is going to happen at some point. You're going to pay him top dollar. So you're probably not going to pay all 5 of them. That's not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there's no law that it has to be the right guard. I mean, it looks like for the, that's what it's been, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And the second question from Dean, and this is a good one. We've always kind of mentioned this in passing, but what's up with the Leadership Council? When did this start? We've talked about the Leadership Council, and it was Doug Peterson, at least in recent history, who started that as a way to kind of figure out what the temperature of the team was about certain things. And it's basically like a collection of players who report back to the head coach.
Yeah, and I think every coach has like his guys, his veteran guys that he trusts, that he talks to, that are always up in his office. It might not always have that like formal leadership council. Sounds like this committee that's meeting at a round table and taking notes and Robert's Rules of Order and all that stuff. But I think every coach has that. They just probably don't call it that. But I've never seen a coach that didn't have veteran guys that he really leaned on to, hey, what's going on down there with this guy and that guy. They really hate each other. I mean, there's always been that.
Yeah. Doug definitely brought some formality to it, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was very valuable for him.
Yeah. And it goes back to like what made Doug successful. It's a trait that Sirianni has, being able to have good relationships with the team. And not to think back to the coach before that, but Chip didn't have that, right? Like when Jeffrey talks about emotional intelligence, that's part of it, is like figuring out how to do what's best for the team. And sometimes like that's just a small element of it, but it has been an important one.
Jason Kelce liked Chip, spoke highly of him.
Yeah, I'm not saying everyone disliked Chip, but I don't think he connected to the team in the way that Doug or Nick did.
Absolutely right. It was just interesting in his, like, whenever you would mention Chip to Kelce, he was like, yeah, I like Chip. He had some really good ideas. It just didn't work out. But it was interesting to hear him talk about him.
Yeah. Next question is from Tom. Gents, I thought most of last year, Jalen Hurts struggled to see the middle of the field because of Landon Dickerson and Mekhi Becton's size, both significantly taller than Jalen. Do you think that had any impact on the Eagles wanting a new player at right guard?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't think that's necessarily untrue, that at times having tall guards makes it difficult for a shorter quarterback to see. I think that's well documented, right? Like, I think Jalen's even admitted that, but I don't think that's the reason Mekhi Becton isn't back.
Yeah, agree. And I thought as the year went on, I thought he was better at that. And in the postseason, I mean, he really used the middle of that field. I think part of that might be just not having Goddard for half the season, who's going to be the guy who's making most of those plays over the middle.
All right, next question is from, and this is a username, it's Getting Jiggy. So most of our names, so we have Getting Jiggy now. Maybe it is. With the 32nd pick in the 2025 draft, and considering that Howie sees talent in value groupings, first tier, second tier, etc., do you think that the odds are good that Howie would trade down if he sees equal value in a slightly lower position and could gain additional second day or third day draft pick? And conversely, moving up slightly to nab someone who may be dropping from what he sees as a higher ranked tier on the draft board. What do you think the odds are in either direction? And do you see any positional possibilities for movement up or down?
Yeah, I mean, Howie never likes to trade in the draft. So, I mean, the odds are they're not going to pick at 32. I mean, if you just look at his history as GM, they pick at their assigned spot less than they trade that pick. So, you know, just the math tells you that they're unlikely to pick a player at 32. And if there's value at 40, at 20 that appeals to him, he'll make that move either way. And I think, you know, it's like we've talked about, like, are they more likely to trade up or trade down? With Howie, you don't know how the draft's going to go. You don't know what players are going to slide, what players are going to go before you expect. So it's really hard to kind of project, especially when you're sitting at 32. I mean, it's hard to know what's going to happen the first 31 picks or the first 25, whatever it is. So neither one would surprise me, and I don't see either one being more or less likely, just because we don't know what those first 31 picks are going to look like.
Yeah, I think in a vacuum, a trade up would make a lot of sense because they have all these picks. They have 8 this year, 11 or 12 next year. So you're not going to draft 20 players. So a trade up makes sense from that perspective. But also, you're right. You don't know how it's going to fall. But think back to last year, and I give Howie a ton of credit for how he handled the draft last year. He sat at 22 and got Quinyon Mitchell, which we never thought was going to be possible entering that draft. And it had to be difficult for him to sit there and just wait and then make that pick. But it was the wise decision. And it just happened because of all the offensive players that went early, and no one really saw that coming.
Howie's been known to do laps around the fields outside while he's waiting to pick, just because he gets so nervous when there's somebody sitting there that, you know, that he's waiting for. But yeah, I think, and look, if they trade down and get picks, he's just going to take those picks and use them most likely for other trades. So I don't think anyone expects them to draft 20 players over the next 2 years. but he'll get good use out of all those picks.
Yeah, he will. And it doesn't have to be just drafting players. It can be packaging them to get a veteran or this. Like, he's done that before too. So that's the fun thing about having him, if you're an Eagles fan, as your GM, because all those possibilities are open, and he doesn't operate in like what a traditional general manager in the way they operate. And that makes it a lot of fun. And he kind of freelances the board a little bit more, and it's exciting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It makes it's always fun. I mean, we sit there and it's like, it seems like every other trade that comes up on the screen is like the Eagles have sent this, the Eagles have done this, Eagles have done that. They're always the most active team draft weekend, and you just never know what's going to come. And he's really, really good at understanding the value of picks and how to get the most out of picks. I don't think there's anybody that's close to him on that. So certainly April 24th, 25th, and 26th will be a lot of fun.
I remember, I think it might have been you that asked him like how he keeps all of it straight in his head. And he's like, I don't know, I just do. But one of my favorite exercises is after the draft is over, going back and figuring out, okay, he started with these picks, he ended with these players and these picks. Like, how did he do in terms of just maximizing value? And for the most part, it's pretty amazing to see the transformation those picks have gone through in 3 days.
And then just taking it one step farther is seeing where a pick goes year to year. Like, if you like, there's some picks that get traded like 5 times, and he just keeps making these moves. And I remember there was one pick, and it took like 4 years, but like a 5 eventually became a 2 just by a series of moves. And
that's a great point, because so much of the league devalues future picks, and Howie hasn't done that. And I think some of that is probably his longevity and his job security, that he's able to think long term. But there's a real benefit to not devaluing those future picks, because a second round pick is a second round pick, no matter if you make it this year or next year or next year. If you can maximize the value like that, it can go a long way.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a lot of GMs that have that luxury. I mean, out of 32 GMs, how many know that in 4 years they're still going to be the GM?
Yeah,
very few. So it's a real luxury, and it lets Howie operate in ways that most GMs can't.
Next question is from Greg. I love your pod and listen to each one after work. My question is about the draft. With the recent acquisition of Azeez Ojulari, do you see a greater priority heading into the draft other than defensive end? DN seemed like the most logical choice after the season ended, but I feel they've added some decent depth, and the emergence of Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt last year makes the need a little less significant for now. Right now, I'd say safety is the most pressing with the loss of CJ Gardner-Johnson, but maybe tight end becomes number one if Goddard leaves. Not sold on Calcaterra or these other acquisitions, and not having a number one tight end could limit the offense. Thanks for your thoughts.
Yeah, I just don't think any of the free agents that they signed are going to affect how he's thinking in the draft. Not one of them. Most of them are one-year deals, and even if they weren't, I mean, Howie's going to take the best player. And look, if it's a quarterback, he's not going to take him. If it's a running back, he's not going to take him. But he's going to take the best player at a position that realistically they can that they need. And I just don't think, Josh Uche, I mean, these guys aren't going to affect how he's thinking. If the best player at 32 or at 28 or at 40 is an edge, nobody calls them defensive ends anymore. To me, defensive end and an edge are two really different things. Like, a defensive end to me is like a guy that's like 280, plays every down, plays the run. And the edge is like 255, third down guy, pass rusher. Now, like, Josh Sweat played the run great. I mean, he was really active, but I still think of him as an edge. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. But no, I don't think any of these moves are going to affect Howie on draft day.
Yeah, I don't either. And the thing about, if you're talking about edge rushers, is like, you can have a bunch of them. They're all going to play. It's not like he signed a left tackle and you don't have a spot for a left tackle anymore. It's like, a bunch of edge rushers can play. You can roll those guys out there, and it doesn't stop you from doing that. Now, there are other. I agree with the premise that safety is a more pressing need. Tight end, if Goddard is gone, is a more pressing need. I don't think you can really argue against that, but you're not just drafting for need in this season.
Yeah, you can't. That's where you get yourself into trouble, and I don't think Howie will make that mistake again.
Next one is from Joe. Hey, fellas, I have a question on Avery Williams. You mentioned him on a recent pod being a candidate to replace Britton Covey / Cooper DeJean on punt returns, but do you think any aspect of his signing is that he can also return kicks and replace Kenny Gainwell there? I wonder if the evaluation is less who is better as a punt returner since it seems so close, but they'd rather have a specialist that is a punt returner and kick returner rather than punt returner / wide receiver 5. Curious to your thoughts.
I think that makes sense. And I think kick returner will be a little more significant this coming year than it was last year. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of guys that are good at both of them. So if he is what they think he is, which is still an unknown, then yeah, that would make sense. Give you.
Yeah, and they're calling him a return specialist. So if you're going to be a return specialist, you better do both.
Because there's only two. There's only two ways to return. Like, you don't
exactly.
He's a fumble return specialist now.
Yeah, and I think that's valuable. And you're right with especially now already with the dynamic kick return, which wasn't that dynamic, but it did bring the play back a little bit. And now that with the touchback rule changing, the NFL at least thinks there's going to be more. They don't know what percentage it's going to be, but they're thinking like 70 to 75% of kicks will be returned. It is more important. So if you have a guy back there that can, even if he's not going to break one, but if he can consistently give you good field position to start drives, it will matter.
Yeah, big time.
Next one from Bo. Hi, Dave and Rube. In the last pod, you joked about how signing players from the Browns and Giants might not be the best strategy, but is there a chance it actually is? Is it possible that one of Howie's most underrated talents is his ability to recognize the difference between a good player that's stuck in a bad system versus someone who just isn't good? Feels like too many guys come here and immediately improve for it to be a coincidence. Thanks for keeping us informed and entertained over the offseason.
Who is that question from?
Bo.
Oh, Bo Wolf is sending us questions now, huh? No, I think it's a great point, and I do think that's something that is very tricky. It can't, you have to kind of look at, who's around a guy, and there's so much to weigh there. But I definitely think it's something Howie's really good at is kind of projecting how somebody will fit in here as opposed to where he was, and in most cases, they're going to be better here just because of the circumstances. It's a valuable thing when you're looking for a free agent. It's like, look, all these guys got better. You're going to come here and you're going to get better. So, why don't you take $2 billion less and become an Eagle?
Yeah, there's something to it. I also think that in the NFL, some coaches believe in themselves a little too much. Like they think that they're going to be the guy to get this talent out of a player. And sometimes that's not the way it works. So I think you're kind of finding that medium there where, yes, you really have to be honest in the evaluation. And some of it goes back to before they've been in the NFL. And I think we're seeing that with some of the players the Eagles have brought in this offseason. They scouted a lot of these guys in college. And you don't want to overly rely on how you scouted them in college because in some cases, a lot of time has passed since then, and they might be different players than they once were. But I think that's a part of the evaluation process too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys in that position this year that it'll be fun to watch. I mean, all these guys that they brought in, have a chance to benefit from being here as opposed to the last place. Most of them, as opposed to the last place they were in.
All right, let's get to the next one from Jeremy. Just a quick CJGJ thought. Rube keeps pointing out that the trade was likely non-football related. Parentheses, partially. I have a theory that with BG and Slay leaving, there may have been a concern that some of the vocal vets weren't going to be there to keep him in line as much. There's also now 2 captain spots on the defense open, and maybe there was concern about having CJ wear a C or concern with his response if he didn't get one. Just some thoughts. I agree that the trade doesn't totally add up based on just money and performance, but I also wonder if they're higher on Kenyon Green than we realize.
I don't think that's the case. I think they feel like there's stuff they liked certainly when he was in college, and you have Stout, so there's always a chance that a failed player can get it together with Stout. But I don't think it's anything that specific where they were afraid if he's not a captain how he's going to. I don't think it's that. I just think it's what kind of fit is he? Is he a culture fit long term? And I think the answer was no. I don't think they were afraid of how he'd react if he wasn't named captain, or I just think he can be difficult, and I think that was part of the equation that led to the trade.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was that specific. Next one is from Rasheen. Hey, Reuben Dave, I've been an avid watcher / listener from quite some time now. Keep up the good work.
Mathis? I don't know a lot of Rasheens. Is it spelled the same? Rashean?
It is not.
It's not Rashean Mathis then. Okay, continue, please, Dave.
Thank you for your blessing. Last year, Dave was really adamant about one specific player in the draft, Quinyon Mitchell. When the Eagles drafted him, I was stoked. My question is for Dave. Dave, who is your belle of the ball in the upcoming draft so I can start checking out some film? Go Birds. I've been thinking about this. If I'm going to lay claim to a player again, kind of like I did with Quinyon last year, the player I've enjoyed so far in this process is actually not projected to be a first-round pick. He's most likely a day 2 pick. It's Josiah Stewart from Michigan, an edge player, kind of undersized. He's only like 6'1", but
super twitchy.
Thank you for that. He is. He's a heck of a lot of fun to watch. He reminds me of Nolan Smith a little bit. He obviously undersized, but like plays bigger than that. And I think if he was like 6'4", 6'5", we're talking about him as a first round pick. I've really enjoyed it. Like Rasheen, if you want to go and watch some Josiah Stewart, it's fun to watch. He's a fun player. You're watching him bend around the edge. He's one of those players that when he gets around the corner, is able to accelerate through that, which is a rare skill to have with that ankle flexion, to throw it back to a dorky scouting term. But also he's tough. I saw another play. Everyone talks about that Nolan Smith play in the Super Bowl where he takes on a pulling Trey Smith. I found a play just like that with Josiah Stewart, and he plays with that for. I think he's a fun player. I don't know if he's a second-round pick, a third-round pick, but he's someone I'm excited to see where he lands.
There you go. Yeah. Good answer. And they're down a Michigan edge rusher, so
yeah, pretty natural, right? And also, I don't know if they want 2 of that body type, and have J-Lix. Maybe they want a bigger, you were talking about defensive end versus edge rusher. Maybe they want a bigger defensive end type body, more like a Josh Sweat, who ironically was listed as a linebacker in his last season, so he could wear 19. But he's certainly like a different body type, a bigger type of player than a Nolan Smith or a Josiah Stewart.
Right.
Paul, living in South Carolina for 29 years, but born in Lower Merion and grew up in Summers Point. Father had season tickets to Franklin Field. The podcast makes my commute shorter. As a former center and guard and now an athletic trainer, my question is about the brotherly shove. The opposing teams are concerned about player safety. The only team I've seen it get stopped is when opposing players tackle Jalen by pulling his head down like a cowboy in the rodeo taking down a steer. I'm pretty sure tackling by headgear is a penalty. Your thoughts? Also, in honor of National Athletic Trainers Month, let's get Otho Davis, who ironically got his signature when I was 7 at training camp in Westchester, into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it'll never happen, but Otho is a groundbreaking trainer, great guy. But yeah, the Hall of Fame doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So, but he's considered like just one of the all-time great trainers.
Yeah, there should be a way to honor other like a there's the contributor category, but it kind of like falls into certain criteria. I'd like there to be a way to open it up a little bit better, or at least to honor them in the museum, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like the Baseball Hall of Fame has like the writer's wing,
Mm-hmm.
So I was out running between practices once back in the 2-a-days at Westchester, and I got stung by a bee on my finger. My finger just blew up, and I was like, I got to get some ice on this. And then I realized I really was only about a quarter mile from the practice fields. It was between practices, but Otho was always there. So I ran down the hill. I didn't have my credential with me, and security was trying to stop me. And Otho was like, "No, it's okay. Come on down." And I said, "Otho, I just got stung by a bee on my fingers." "Oh, that's swelled up pretty good." So he gets his case out and he walks over, puts some powder on it, puts a little lotion on it. You'll be fine. That was what he always said. He'll be fine. And like I swear, like 2 hours later, it was back to normal. And he would never tell me what he put on there.
Really? It's proprietary, I guess.
It was. He never told me, but he was a genius.
That's a pretty fun story.
He was a mythical figure. Yeah, he was. And back then things were different. Like we were allowed to interview him every day. I mean, you ask him every day about injured players, and hey, he's got a little hammy, he'll be fine. Terry Hogue got a little foot thing, he'll be fine. It was the best. Yeah.
Hard to imagine that now, huh?
So things have changed a little bit.
All right, let's take a quick break. A bunch of other questions coming up on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
All right, next one from Joe. I was aware the Packers and Patriots had museums, but recently discovered that the Niners, Chiefs, and Steelers also have gridiron galleries. Seems that a permanent Eagles exhibit is long overdue. Long email after that, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the Eagles potentially having some sort of museum or something.
I love that idea. I mean, I really like what they did in the Head House Plaza. Have you been down there lately? I mean, there's all kinds of historical displays and plaques and different things, but you have to be. Yeah, that's through security. You have to be going to a game to see it all, and they have other stuff around the stadium. But I love that idea. I would love to see it. It's tough to make it work financially. I don't know if it's something the Eagles would want to. Like, I think the Packers Hall of Fame, you can actually, it's in Lambeau, but you can go in. You don't have to be at a game. There's an entrance from outside.
And it's paid admission.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to see that. I don't know if there's room, if there's anywhere to put it. And
maybe not in this stadium.
Maybe in the next stadium, plant that seed in Jeff Lurie's mind. But I would love to see that. A little Eagles Hall of Fame. You have plaques where everybody's in the Eagles Hall of Fame, a little bio. I mean, this is a franchise that has so much history going back to the 1930s, championships in 2 championships in the 40s, in 1960, and then this run. I think it's something that I think fans would love it. I think a lot of people would go there, and then you have obviously the Eagles Hall of Fame gift shop. Which would generate revenue. I think it's a great idea. Love to see it.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Next question, similar in a way, from Chris. Hey guys, I was listening to your pod last week and I think I stumbled upon something. You said that the Thorpe Trophy was found in the Packers Hall of Fame closet and that the only team missing from the trophy was the 1960 Eagles. Well, who was the only team to beat Vince Lombardi in the playoffs? The 1960 Eagles. Could the Packers be trying to gatekeep history by stealing the trophy, hiding it away, and not allowing the 1960 Eagles to be on it? Could they be trying to protect their beloved Vince Lombardi? I would love to hear your thoughts.
The only postseason game of Vince Lombardi or Bart Starr ever lost was at Franklin Field. Man, I was just at Franklin Field. I was recording a video for the Penn Relays, and the the Packers locker room is on the I guess it's the north side of Franklin Field. Do you remember Ed Mahan, the photographer? He was a photographer for the Eagles for like 50 years. And he took me in there once and showed me exactly where Vince Lombardi spoke to the team at halftime. And then the Eagles locker room was the one that was like in the open horseshoe area. Every time I drive by that stadium, I just like, you think like that there was one of the most historic games in NFL history was in that building. And I wonder how many people drive down to Schuylkill and don't even realize that. But anyway, that there could be something to that. I doubt it. I think it more likely has to do with the tush push. I think it's part of it.
Do you think this is like long-standing revenge?
Yeah. I mean, never been a lot of love lost between the two franchises. I mean, there's the trophy, there's the tush push thing, there's Dawk's interception of Brett Favre, 4th and 26.
The Eagles hired Andy away.
They hired Andy away, yeah. And they just signed a running back from the Packers. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird story though, Jim, why the Eagles aren't on there. And yeah, maybe we should
strange.
Yeah.
Next one from Kevin. Hey, Dave and Rube, love the podcast. In an earlier episode, Rube kept mentioning that certain things/events hadn't happened since free agency started. This made me wonder, how did it work in the NFL before free agency? What were the rules of engagement when a player's contract was up? Do you think Howie would have cooked as hard back then?
Yeah, when your contract was up, the team that you were with basically had your rights. And, you know, you couldn't sign with another team unless they relinquished their, and they would do that if there's a player they didn't want to keep. So then you become the only way to become a free agent was if the team you were with said, you know, we're not going to offer you any contract. But it's basically up to the team to determine what that contract was worth. That's why so many players held out of camp all the time. I mean, the Eagles would regularly have 20, 25 players holding out of camp just because, you know, the Eagles were offering them a deal and you couldn't really negotiate. They would give you what they thought you were worth. And you had no leverage because you couldn't become a free agent. But if you sat out the year, then you lost a year of your contract. So it was certainly and then Keith Jackson and a couple other players challenged the system in court. And the first thing they did was they formed, I think they had that plan B free agency where like 3 players on your team could be free agents. But then in 92, everybody gained that right after their contract expired. And it's been certainly a lot more equitable since then. But yeah, it was very anti-player back then. And in a lot of ways, as far as health insurance and pension and all that kind of stuff. But that was that's why you see so many players spent their whole career with one team back then. They really didn't have any choice.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about that now. Do you think Howie would be able to find ways to give his team an advantage in that old setup?
Well, obviously drafting was more important because if you didn't draft well, you couldn't fill in the blanks with free agents. But he's pretty good at that. I think talent is talent in any era. So I think he'd be pretty good in any era.
Okay. From Roy,
Good
obviously
question.
love your
Good
guys'
question
show.
today.
Yeah, they're good. Obviously love your guys' show. I think it's the most in-depth show regarding the Eagles. I always come here to get the most relevant information about the team. Anyways, in regards to trade targets during the draft or before the trade deadline, what do you guys think are the odds that the Eagles trade for another Georgia Bulldog alum, Trayvon Walker? I think that with the Jaguars having a new head coach in place, he may become available for a trade, and I know how he loves his Bulldogs. What do you think we'd have to give up for him? I'd give up a first and next year's 3 for him since we have 2 third-round picks next year, and we would have to pay him soon.
Yeah,
that's too much, obviously.
that's a little much for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of him being a trade target. His career's been okay. He hasn't really been like that top pick guy. He hasn't become a superstar in the league. And yeah, I think he'd be fun to watch. Like Howie is slowly just recreating that defense anyway. So the idea that he would go out and trade for a guy like that, it does make some sense. He's been good.
Yeah.
I mean, his numbers are, what does he have? 10 and 10.5 in his last 2 years.
Yeah, you figure there's a lot more there. I don't see it. It'd be fun. If he's a fun player.
It would be fun. Yeah, and I like how he is slowly just chipping away at that.
Not that slowly.
Yeah, not that slowly. From Matthew. Hello, Reuben. See, you get one. I was writing about one of your recent observations regarding the Eagles defense from 1980 through 1990 under Buddy Ryan being a middle of the pack defense. My question is, what do you feel like were the main factors to why the defense ranked so lowly? We Eagles fans tend to put that defense on a pedestal mainly for two reasons: 1991 and two, all of the gaudy sack and interception numbers. Of course, there are many legendary and borderline legendary names on that team, but at the end of the day, they never came through when it mattered most. There were many times where you knew they just weren't going to make the stop. But what were the reasons? Taking too many risks on defense, an offense that couldn't establish a real running attack and keep the defense off the field. We can't blame everything on Isaiah Jenkins. Thanks for your time. An avid listener living in Belgium.
Belgium. I took a train through Belgium once. I love the Isaiah Jenkins reference. It's a great question. I don't know if there's any one thing. I think the things he mentioned are a big part of it. And, it was 86 through 90. Obviously, 91, Buddy was gone. He was defensive coordinator of the Oilers. Were they the Oilers back then? But yeah, in his 5 years, I only had one top 10 defense. And that's with Reggie White, Eric Allen, Seth Joyner, Clyde Simmons, Andre Waters, Byron Evans, Wes Hopkins. I mean, the talent on that team was incredible. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other guys, Mike Pitts, Mike Golick. Why were they so mediocre? I don't think they had a great staff. I don't think they had a great coaching staff. I don't think they had great position coaches. And I think certainly the offense underachieving was part of it, but I think Buddy's defense was flawed kind of in a similar way to like Jeremiah Washburn. I mean, it was all about getting sacks. And if you didn't get sacked, Jim Washburn. Yeah, my bad. If you didn't get a sack, the other team was making a big play against you. And then never had that, that really good second corner opposite Eric Allen. Ben Smith for a while, and he got hurt. But that was later. Yeah, Isaiah Jenkins was a big part of the problem. But I don't know if it's any one thing, and I've never really put my finger on why. I mean, Buddy was you look at what he did with the Bears. I mean, 85 that's one of the greatest defenses ever assembled. So he knew what he was doing. I think when he got here, he thought things would come a lot easier than they did, and he would just, I'm Buddy Ryan, we're going to play great defense, but it just never happened. He was really arrogant in that way, and he just thought teams were going to roll over because I'm Buddy Ryan and I'm coaching this team. But with that kind of talent, to never win a playoff game and have one top 10 defense, their interception numbers and sack numbers were off the charts during those years, but they just never put it all together.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. Let's do one more.
I don't remember even writing about any of my recent observations, but apparently I did.
This one, and we'll finish here, is from Eric. He gives us a list of players. Do you guys see any of the players listed below who have been on the practice squad and maybe just need time to understand a system, heal from injury, or just get stronger, making an impact this year and contributing? And I'll just run through the list of players he provided, and then you let me know if one or two of these names kind of stand out to you. Gabe Hall, Byron Young, Thomas Booker, Lewis Seen, Tariq Castro-Fields, AJ Woods, KJ Henry, Danny Gray, Lou Nichols, LaRaven Clark, Darian Kennard, Trevor Keegan.
Well, I'm not sure LaRaven's going to be playing anymore, but has he officially retired, or he's got to be? Hasn't played in a few years, but there's a couple intriguing names on that list. Obviously, Thomas Booker's a guy that gave him some decent snaps this year.
Especially early in the season when the defense wasn't playing very well, he was like giving them some quality snaps.
Yeah, so he's one guy. But yeah, I mean, if you can get a couple of those guys, as practice squad call-ups and help out on special teams or something, you consider it successful. Byron Young is a guy. I mean, Lewis Seen was a first-round pick, right? I think first or second-round pick. I think he was a first-round pick.
32nd overall, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you'd like to see what he looks like in training camp. Maybe he's a guy that can carve out a spot, but not many of those guys.
Not many. Darian Kennard, they kept him and Trevor Keegan, they kept them on the roster all of last year. So they clearly like them and they think they're worth developing. But I'd be lying to you if I said we haven't seen much of them to really know, other than what we saw in training camp last year.
We haven't Lewis seen them.
I think that's a good place to stop today. If you have a question for us, eagleeyednbcuni.com. The QR code is on the screen for another second for you there. This is where I remind everyone, if you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That was fun. A lot of good questions. We appreciate you guys for doing most of the work for us there. Any final words?
I do, actually. On Sunday afternoon, I got to MC the South Jersey Track Hall of Fame banquet in Berlin, New Jersey. And it was a really cool experience. I got to meet three Olympians, three U.S. Olympians: English Gardner, Olympic gold medalist, Nia Ali from Pleasantville, Olympic silver medalist, and Mariel Hall from Haddonfield, an Olympian at 10,000. It was just really cool. They were all like just incredible. Like, this is a small, South. I mean, they could be like in the U.S. Track and Field Hall of Fame. They're so accomplished. But like, they're all top 10 in U.S. history in their event. But they were so into being there, and they were so humble. Their speeches were incredible, all three of them. And it was just really cool that they all have such a connection with South Jersey and the track community in South Jersey. So, and look, all the inductees it was just a great night, but those three in particular, just spending some time with them and talking to them and kind of learning what makes them tick was a really cool experience. It was a fun night. Yeah.
I'm glad you had a good time. I'm sure you did a great job as well. That's it for today. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.